Ting! A notification pops up. It's him. Your heart skips a beat. Your mind races. Why now? You've healed. You've rebuilt yourself. You finally feel free. And just when you're thriving, he appears. It's tempting, isn't it? The urge to respond, to see what he wants, to maybe, just maybe, give it another shot. But pause for a second. Is this really about love, or is it about power? Most women fail this test. They text back too quickly. They assume he's changed. They give away their peace in exchange for empty words. But not you. Not this time. This time, you move with clarity, confidence, and control. In this video, I'll reveal the hidden traps that pull women back into the past and how to avoid them like a high-value woman. If you want to stay strong and in control, keep watching. Has this happened to you? Drop a comment below. Let's talk. And if you're serious about protecting your peace, about staying true to the woman you've become, watch until the end. Because what I'm about to share, it will change how you handle this situation. Forever. 1. Don't react. Emotionally. A text appears. His name glows on your screen like a ghost from the past. Your pulse quickens. The memories, the words, the emotions, you feel them rushing in before you even open the message. For a moment, it's like time folds in on itself. You remember the way he looked at you, the way he made you laugh, the way he hurt you. And now, after all this time, he's here again. One part of you wants to believe this means something. The other part, the wiser part, knows better. Because this isn't just a message, it's a test. Most women fail this test. They react too quickly, letting emotions override logic. They text back in seconds, giving away the very power they spent months, sometimes years, rebuilding. It's not just about what you say, it's about what it signals. The moment you respond impulsively, you send a silent message. You still hold space in my mind. You still have an effect on me. But you're not the same woman you used to be. You've grown. You've learned. And today, you do something different. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside. Events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This moment, it's one of those outside events. You cannot control when he decides to reappear, but you can control how you respond. And the response starts with silence. Elisa had been there before. She thought she was over him until he reached out. It was a simple message. "Hey, how have you been?" Just 7 words, yet they unraveled her. She felt her fingers twitch, an automatic response forming before she even knew what she wanted to say. She told herself it was harmless. A text wouldn't change anything. So she replied. 1 text became 2. 2 became an hour-long conversation. By the next day, she was falling back into the same cycle she had fought so hard to escape. Overanalyzing, checking her phone, feeling that old, familiar mix of hope and anxiety. And that's when it hit her. This wasn't about him. It was about her. About whether she would allow herself to be pulled back into something that once shattered her peace. So she did something radical. She stopped replying. She reclaimed her silence. She didn't block him, didn't send a long-winded message about how she had moved on. She just stepped away. And in that silence, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Think of it like this. Imagine a chessboard. The moment you make the first move, you give your opponent something to react to. But if you hold your position, if you resist the impulse to play their game, you force them into uncertainty. You shift the power dynamic without saying a single word. This is what silence does. It unsettles. It demands respect. It forces him to sit with his own thoughts, to wonder why the woman he once knew so well isn't predictable anymore. And here's what most people don't realize. You don't owe anyone an immediate response. If someone truly values you, they will wait. If they are sincere, their intentions will remain the same tomorrow, next week, or next month. But if their message was just a fleeting moment of boredom, curiosity, or ego, time will expose that. And this is where the real test happens. The moment you pause, you gain clarity. You separate what you feel from what is real, because emotions are temporary. They swell like waves, crash into you, and then fade. But your choices? They have lasting impact. So the next time his name flashes across your screen, remember, not every message deserves a response. Not every feeling deserves to be followed. Not every ghost deserves to be let back in. Your silence isn't weakness. It's a statement, a boundary, a reminder to him, and more importantly, to yourself, that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. 2. Don't assume his intentions. Our pure message from him feels like a spark in the dark. Maybe he finally realized what he lost. Maybe he truly misses me. Maybe this time it's different. But that's the illusion, isn't it? The one that keeps pulling women back into the past. Hope is a beautiful thing, but when it blinds you to reality, it becomes dangerous. Men don't always return because they've changed. Some do, but most. They come back out of loneliness, out of boredom, or worse, to see if they still have access to you. It's not about love, it's about control. Words are easy. I miss you. I've changed. I regret everything. But words don't hold weight unless they are carried by action. And action? That's what many men fail to show. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against their accusations, but reply, 'You obviously do not know about my other faults, or you would have mentioned these as well.'" People reveal who they are through patterns, not promises. If a man was inconsistent before, if he made excuses, if he disappeared when you needed him, why assume that a single message means he's suddenly a different person? Jane used to believe in second chances. She met him at a time when she was soft, trusting, full of belief in love's ability to change people. He was charming, passionate, full of promises. He knew exactly what to say, the right words at the right time, the kind that made her heart feel like it was finally home. But home shouldn't make you question your worth. The first time he left, he had an excuse. Work stress, a need for space. The classic, "It's not you, it's me." And just like that, he was gone. She spent months trying to understand, justifying his actions, blaming herself. Then, just as she was starting to heal, he came back. His words were different, but the pattern was the same. "I made a mistake. I miss you. Can we talk?" It was so easy to believe. She let him back in, convinced herself that love was about forgiveness, about understanding. And for a while, it was good, until it wasn't. The second time, he left with fewer words. The third, with none at all. By the fourth, she wasn't even surprised. It took her years to realize he never came back because he loved her. He came back because he knew he could. A man will always return to where he feels safe, to where he knows he still holds power. And the only way to break that cycle is to stop making it easy for him to walk in and out of your life. Imagine yourself as a locked door, the kind with a key, not a revolving one that swings open at every knock. If someone truly values you, they will take the time to prove themselves, to earn their way in with effort, patience, and consistency. But if a man is only knocking because he expects the door to fly open the second he arrives, That's not love. That's entitlement. Real change takes time. Not a week, not a month, not even a single conversation. A man who has truly changed won't just say it. He'll show it, day after day, in ways that leave no room for doubt. So the next time he reaches out, ask yourself, is he knocking because he wants to build something real? Or is he just seeing, if the door is still unlocked, your heart is not a home for the uncertain. Not anymore. 3. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back. You've spent months, maybe years, healing, finding your strength, building a life that's yours and yours alone. The idea of letting him back in seems unreal, but then he texts. The words come out so easily. I've made mistakes. I regret everything. I miss you. Your heart stirs. Those words, familiar, sweet, almost like a balm to old wounds, make you question everything. But here's the truth. Forgiveness is not about opening the door to someone who hasn't earned their place back. It's not about inviting someone to re-enter your life just because their guilt feels heavy, or because they finally realize they miss you. It's about your peace, your growth, and your ability to move forward without being held back by the past. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And this, dear woman, is exactly where the test lies. How will you react when he calls? Will you give away your peace in hopes of finding something that no longer exists? Or will you stay true to the woman who has found her strength? Mia, a beautiful soul with a heart too big for her own good, once stood where you are. She'd spent years healing from a relationship that had left her broken and uncertain. She had rebuilt her life, found her independence, and started to thrive. Until one day, out of the blue, he reached out. I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk? For a moment, she felt that familiar pull, the weight of nostalgia, the weight of what-ifs. But Mia was no fool. She knew better than to believe the words alone. She had learned, through the trials of life, that true forgiveness requires no audience, no grand gestures from the person who hurt you. It is simply an act of self-love, to release the past and allow your soul the space it needs to grow without being constantly dragged backward. So Mia chose to take a step back. She didn't respond right away. She didn't allow herself to be swept up by his words, no matter how sweet or familiar they seemed. She paused. And in that pause, she found clarity. She realized that her life, her beautiful, blossoming life, was no longer something she had to share with someone who had failed. To respect it. The man who once walked away when things got tough didn't deserve another chance to disrupt her newfound peace. She forgave him. But she did so quietly, within herself, and without needing him to see or hear it. The choice to forgive doesn't mean you invite that person back in. Forgiveness is freedom. It is the acknowledgement that you are no longer a prisoner to your past. And here's the thing. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table, especially not someone who took yours for granted. Imagine for a moment you're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below you lies the past, a swirling, chaotic mix of memories and unresolved emotions. You can either jump back into it, where you know the waters are turbulent and cold, or you can hold your ground, standing tall on the solid rock of your present self. Your feet are firm, the wind may be strong, but your footing is secure, because you've built something that's yours. Why risk falling back into the storm? That's the power of forgiveness. It doesn't bind you to the past. It frees you to walk forward. And you, my dear, are strong enough to walk without looking back. Now, how does this relate to Stoicism? Stoic philosophers teach us that we should not allow external events, such as a person's return into our lives, to control us. We must control our reactions. When an ex comes back into your life, it's a test of your boundaries and your self-respect. Will you allow their reappearance to disrupt your growth? Or will you respond from a place of strength, knowing your worth and knowing that you don't need to settle for someone who doesn't truly value you? Remember, forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. You can forgive him without allowing him to take space in your life again. Real growth doesn't just mean forgiving the person who hurt you. It means learning from it, allowing it to fuel your growth, your independence, and your journey forward. There's a beauty in choosing peace, a beauty in choosing yourself. You deserve that. And you are deserving of love that honors your boundaries and respects the woman you've become. This, my friend, is the true power of forgiveness. You don't give him a second chance. You give yourself the freedom to move on, without the weight of past mistakes holding you back. So, when that text comes again, as it surely will, remember this. You are not obligated to answer. You are not obligated to forgive on anyone's timeline but your own. You are in control. The woman you've become, the strength you've found, is what matters most. Not his apologies, not his regrets, not his words. You've forgiven, but you've also moved on. And that's a new chapter, a beautiful one. 4. Don't overshare about your life. He asks, "How have you been?" It's such a simple question, harmless even. But the urge to answer fully, to pour out your growth, your success, your newfound confidence, it comes fast. You want him to know that you're thriving, that you've changed, that you're no longer the woman who waited by the phone, hoping for a message like this. But here's the truth. When you overshare, you give him exactly what he wants: access. Not to your body, not even to your time, but to your mind. Men like him, they don't always come back to reconcile. Sometimes, they come back just to see if they still have an effect on you. If you answer too eagerly, if you open the door too wide, you confirm it. He still holds space in your world, and that's all he needs to feel powerful again. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." You don't owe him insight into your life. You don't owe him the details of your growth. Let him wonder. Let him sit in the silence of what he doesn't know. Imagine this. You're in a dimly lit restaurant, the air thick with quiet conversations. Across the table sits a woman, confident, radiant, her presence commanding attention. She speaks little about herself. When asked about her life, she smiles, offers just enough, and then shifts the conversation elsewhere. There's something magnetic about her, something untouchable. That woman? That's you. When you choose mystery over explanation. The mistake many women make is believing that closure, power, or validation comes from proving themselves, proving they've moved on, proving they're better now. But the need to prove anything at all is, in itself, a sign that something inside still seeks approval, and you don't need it. You already know your worth. A woman once stood in your exact position. She had been hurt, discarded, left to wonder if she was ever enough. But she rebuilt herself. Not for him, not to make a statement, simply because she deserved it. And then, just as she had found her peace, he returned. His message was casual, effortless. "Hey, it's been a while. How have you been?" She could have told him everything. How she had rediscovered herself. How she had learned to enjoy solitude. How she had stopped waiting for his validation. But instead, she responded with 4 words. "I'm doing well, thanks." And that was it. No long explanations. No unnecessary emotions. Just a simple, elegant response that left him with nothing to hold on to. He tried again. "I miss you. We should catch up sometime." She read the words and smiled, not because she wanted to see him, but because for the first time she realized she no longer felt the pull. The version of her that would have once jumped at the opportunity no longer existed. so she left the message unanswered. Silence, when used correctly, is not just absence. It is power. It forces others to sit in their own uncertainty, to wonder, to question. And in that questioning, they realize what they lost. Think of it like a flame. A candle burns steady, revealing everything in its soft glow. But a distant fire flickering on the horizon? That is what captures attention. That is what draws people closer, trying to see more, trying to understand what they cannot immediately grasp. You are that fire. When you hold back, when you choose not to explain, when you resist the urge to lay your life bare for him, you become something greater than just a woman he once knew. You become a woman he never truly understood. And nothing is more haunting to a man than the realization that he never fully figured you out. So the next time he asks, "How have you been?" pause. Feel the power in restraint. Give him only what you want to give. And remember, your life is no longer his business. 5. Don't fall for the "let's just talk" trap. The message arrives late at night. Short, innocent. "Can we talk?" Your breath catches for a moment. A part of you expected it, maybe even hoped for it. Because what if this time is different? Won't be. A man who truly wants to make things right does not show up with vague words and no real effort. He does not test the waters to see if you are still there, still waiting, still willing to give him access to your life without accountability. When he says, "Let's just talk," what he really means is, "Let me back in without conditions." And that's where women get trapped. The idea of closure. The belief that a conversation will bring clarity. The thought that maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A person's worth is measured by the worth of what they value." If a man values you, he will not approach you with half measures. He will not reappear, with empty words and no true intention to change. A man who respects you will show it, not just say it. But words are seductive, aren't they? They carry the weight of old memories, of promises once made, of a version of him you once believed. And that's why women fall into this trap. Because we want to believe that people change. You sit there, staring at the screen, heart pounding. Should you answer? Should you give him the chance to explain? A war wages in your mind. You remember the nights you cried over him, the silent treatments, the times he left you questioning your worth. And yet, here he is, typing, reaching out, pulling you back in. Lena once stood exactly where you are now. A man she once loved walked away, taking with him every illusion of certainty. She spent months piecing herself back together. And just when she had begun to feel whole again, his name appeared on her phone. She hesitated. She told herself it was just a conversation, nothing more. So she replied. And before she knew it, they were talking every day again. But something felt off. He wasn't offering real apologies. He wasn't speaking of a future. He was just there, lingering in her life, softening her boundaries, making her question if she had ever really wanted to move on. And that's when she saw it for what it was. He hadn't come back because he loved her. He had come back because she had stopped chasing, because she had pulled away, because for the first time, he wasn't sure he still had her. It wasn't love. It was control. And so Lena did something different. She let the conversation fade. She didn't respond to his next message. She chose herself over his unfinished business. And in that silence, she felt something shift. Power. Imagine a pendulum. When one person pulls away, the other feels the force of that distance. The moment. You lean back, they lean in. But here's the secret. You don't have to play that game. You don't have to be the woman who gets pulled back into a story that should have ended long ago. A man who truly values you will return with action, not just conversation. He will come back with changed behavior, with genuine remorse, with consistency, not just, let's talk. So when the message comes, as it often does, remember, your silence is not rejection. It is a boundary. It is self-respect. It is you choosing peace over uncertainty, clarity over chaos. You don't need another conversation. You don't need closure. You need to remember who you are. And that is enough. 6. Don't let guilt make you. Waver his message is different this time. Not casual, not vague. This one is heavier. I miss you. I've been struggling. I don't know what to do without you. A wave of emotions crashes over you. Guilt, sympathy, the echoes of old love. Because despite everything, you are not heartless. You care. You always have. And maybe that's what makes this so hard, knowing that someone you once loved is now in pain. But pause. Breathe. Why is he telling you this now? A man who truly wants to be better does not use guilt as a tool. A man who truly regrets losing you does not make his emotions your responsibility. But that's what this is, isn't it? A test. A subtle, manipulative pull to see if you will still prioritize him over yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And this is an outside event. His emotions, his regrets, his loneliness, these are his to carry, not yours. A woman sat where you are now. She had walked away, chosen herself, built a new life. And then, one night, the message arrived. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about us. I feel lost. Her heart clenched. He had hurt her. Yes. But she had once loved him. That part of her, the part that once made excuses for him, stirred. She wanted to comfort him, to remind him of his strength, to be there for him, as she had always been. And for a moment, she almost did. But then she saw it for what it was. Where was this regret when she needed him? Where was this emotional depth when she cried herself to sleep, wondering why she was never enough? Why did it take her absence for him to realize her worth? That's when she understood. This wasn't about love. It was about loss. Not his loss of her, but his loss of control over her. She thought about all the times she had put his needs above her own, the way she had bent, shrunk herself, carried his burdens just to keep the peace. And where had that left her? Empty, tired, forgotten. So, she did the hardest thing, the thing her old self would have never done. She left him to his own pain. She did not fix it. She did not explain. She did not carry what was never hers to hold. And in doing so, she walked away, truly free. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls. The rain stings. But then, you notice something. The storm isn't yours. It's his. He created it. And now he wants you to stand in it with him. But you have a choice. You can step away. You can stand in the quiet, in the peace you have fought so hard to build. A man who truly values you will not use guilt to keep you near. He will not ask you to sacrifice your well-being to make him feel better. And if he does, he is not the man for you. Guilt is a powerful weapon, but only if you let it be. The moment you refuse to carry what is not yours, you take back your power. You remind yourself, and him, that you are no longer the woman who bends under the weight of his emotions. There is a difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. You can wish him well. You can hope he heals. But you do not have to be the one to fix him. You do not have to be the safe place he returns to when the world feels too heavy. If he truly wants to grow, he will do it, with or without you. But if he only wants you back to ease his own suffering, to fill the void he created, then he has not changed. He has only become more desperate. So when the message comes, when he tries to pull you back with sorrow and regret, remember this. Your strength is not cruelty. Your boundaries are not cold. You are simply choosing yourself, as you always should have. And that is the most powerful thing of all. 7. Don't let him disrupt your life. It starts with a message, then a thought, then another. Before you know it, his presence, something you thought you had erased, is creeping back into your world. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. A distraction, a weight, a force pulling you away from the woman you've become. This is how it happens. Not with grand gestures, not with fireworks or dramatic confessions, but with subtle, almost invisible shifts in your focus. You begin checking your phone more than usual, wondering what he meant by that last message, replaying old memories, the good ones, forgetting, just for a moment, the reasons you walked away. And that's how he wins. Not by proving he's changed, not by suddenly becoming the man you deserved all along, but simply by taking up space in your mind again. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This moment, this distraction, this is an outside event. It only has power if you allow it. A woman once stood where you are now. She had done the work. She had healed. She had stopped waking up with him as the first thought in her mind. She had built a life so full, so rich, that she no longer needed closure. She no longer needed to explain. She was at peace. And then, out of nowhere, he reached out. It wasn't much, just a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" But that was all it took. The moment she saw his name, something inside her shifted. She told herself it was nothing. That she could respond casually, keep it light, stay in control. But control is a funny thing. A few days later, she found herself scrolling through old messages, looking at pictures she swore she had forgotten. And suddenly, she wasn't just responding to a text. She was reopening a door she had fought so hard to close. That's when she realized he hadn't returned to love her. He had returned to distract her from her growth, from her peace, from the woman she had fought to become. Distraction is dangerous because it's quiet. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It doesn't feel like control. It feels like curiosity. Like maybe I'll just reply. Like maybe I'll just see where he's at. But it's never just that, is it? Because every moment spent thinking about him is a moment not spent thinking about yourself. Imagine your mind as a garden. You've spent months pulling the weeds, planting new seeds, watching your life bloom into something beautiful. And then, one day, a single vine from the past creeps back in. Small, harmless, but left unchecked. It grows. It wraps itself around the flowers, choking them, pulling them back into the ground. That's what an ex can be, a vine that slowly reclaims what you fought to protect. So what do? You don't entertain it. You don't let it grow. You don't water it with attention, with curiosity, with maybe I'll just check in. You cut it off before it spreads. This is not about being cold. It is not about bitterness. It is about protecting your peace. Because when a man truly respects you, he does not return as a distraction. He returns with intention, with action, with change. And if he hasn't done that, then he does not deserve your energy, not even in passing thoughts. The next time he appears, remember this: his presence in your life is not inevitable. His ability to disrupt you is not a given. You are in control. You always have been. And a woman who knows her worth does not allow herself to be distracted by a past that no longer serves her. A date. Even if he comes back for the right reasons, stay cautious. It would be easier if he returned just to play games. If he showed up with the same half-hearted efforts, the same empty words. That would make it simple. You'd recognize the pattern and walk away. But what if this time it feels different? What if he's saying all the right things? I've changed. I finally understand what I lost. I'm ready to give you the love you deserve. And maybe, for the first time, you believe him. This is where it gets dangerous. Because the moment a man seems to have evolved, it's easy to let your guard down, to assume that time and distance have worked their magic, that love, after everything, has finally won. But pause. Breathe. Why now? Why after all this time? People don't change overnight. They don't wake up one day with a new soul. Growth is slow, painful, and often invisible. A man who has truly changed will not return with words alone. He will return with proof. Epictetus once said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" A real transformation does not need to announce itself. It is seen, felt, known. And if a man has changed, it will not be because he tells you. It will be because his actions, consistently over time, leave no doubt. But that's the mistake women make. The second chance, the hopeful heart. The belief that maybe this time, things will be different. You stand there, phone in hand, heart caught between memory and reality. The version of him you once loved flickers in your mind. The way he made you feel in the beginning. The way you once dreamed it would be. And now here he is, telling you that he's ready. So you ask yourself, do I let him back in? A woman once stood in this exact place. She had let go, built a new life, convinced herself she would never go back. And then one evening, just as she had stopped looking for his shadow in her past, he appeared. His words were different, not desperate, not manipulative, sincere, or at least they seemed to be. He spoke of regret, of change, of all the things she had once begged him to see. And for the first time, he was saying it without being asked. It would have been easy to fall into the warmth of those words, to believe that everything she had once wanted was finally within reach. But something inside her had shifted. She didn't rush. She didn't collapse into nostalgia. She watched, and what she saw was this. His consistency was weak. His effort, though better than before, was still uncertain. His words were beautiful, but words had never been the problem. His follow-through had, so she made a choice, not out of fear, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. She didn't shut him out completely. She didn't punish him for the past. But she also didn't hand over her trust like a gift wrapped in blind faith. She let time do what time does best, reveal the truth. Because if he had truly changed, he wouldn't need her to believe him right away. He wouldn't expect instant forgiveness. He wouldn't rush her into trusting again. A man who has truly evolved understands that patience, effort, and action, not words, are what rebuild what was broken. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. He is on the other side, calling out to you, swearing that the bridge he once burned has now been rebuilt. But you don't just take his word for it. You don't run across, hoping it will hold. You wait. You watch. You let him walk the bridge. First, because if he built it strong enough, he will cross it to meet you. This is what a woman who knows her worth does. She does not rush. She does not surrender her peace just because a man suddenly realizes it is valuable. She watches, she listens. She trusts only what is proven. So if he comes back, pause. Not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Observe, not just what he says, but how he moves. Because the right man won't ask you to gamble with your heart. He will show you, through time and action, that you are not making a mistake. And if he is not willing to do that, then he hasn't truly changed. He has only realized what he lost. And that's not your problem anymore. At some point, he will come back. Maybe with nostalgia, maybe with regret, maybe with grand promises of change. But none of that matters. Because this isn't about him. It never was. This is about you. Your strength isn't measured by whether or not he returns. It's measured by how you respond when he does. You've seen the traps now, the emotional reactions that give him control, the illusions of change that are nothing more than a test of access, the guilt that tries to make you responsible for a pain he created, the subtle distractions that pull you away from your own growth. And even when he does return with good intentions, you know better than to let words alone guide your choices. You hold the power. You always have. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." The same applies to you. What do you value more? His validation or your peace? His reappearance or your growth? Because every time you choose yourself, you reinforce something powerful. You are no longer the woman who waits for him to realize your worth. You already know it. And this knowing, this self-awareness, it changes everything. It makes you untouchable, in the best way. A woman who cannot be manipulated, who does not second-guess her boundaries, who does not let the past dictate her future. So when the moment comes, when his name lights up your phone, stop. Feel the ground beneath you. Breathe. And ask yourself, does this serve me? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been tested like this? Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone you once loved? Share your story below, because your voice might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today.